Precinct Walker, Joan and I are active in the Democratic Protocol at Oceanside, and I'm on the Central Committee, and the job there is to figure out who you want to endorse, who's going to be the person you want to see in office and who can do the best job. And I'm thrilled with the way this has worked out, and I'm proud of the fact that quite a while back I did get pulled over tonight. But I'm not going to introduce Mike. Okay, wonderful, Joe.
I'm so glad everybody came. It's such an important election, and we really, this gives us hope. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And now I'd like to introduce a really good friend of mine, Bob Spencer, who just ran the Democratic Protocol at Oceanside when he needed leadership and did a wonderful job there, and has been affiliated with Mike from very early on, and has done a lot for the Democratic Party and for politics here. Here's Bob Spencer.
Thank you. I recognize a lot of volunteers and a lot of new faces. So thank you so much for coming. Before I talk about this guy on my left, I want to recognize a few people. One is an early endorser of Mike, who is a Carlsbad school board member, also running again, and she also brought the fruit kebabs. Kathy Rawlings. We may have a few other elected official politicians coming in, but there's an endorsement meeting at the North County Latino thing, so they may be dropping by a little bit later. I do want to recognize the parents of our great treasurer, Oceanside treasurer, the Beck family.
City clerk.
City clerk.
Oh, yes.
That's all right.
Oceanside, you voted for him. But without further ado, I want to talk a little bit about my friend Mike. We met under an odd circumstance. I was going down to promote who I thought was going to be our next congressman, Colonel Doug Applegate. And a lady from the Democratic Women of South Orange County said, there might be another person coming in. So I'd like you to meet him. We talked on the phone. That was 18 months ago.
Yeah.
18 months. And I've gotten a chance to know Mr. Levin quite well now. There is no candidate that will work harder than Mike Levin. He is up at 4:30 or 5 a.m. every day, running social media, calling Washington, and early on, I was talking to him the early morning conversation. You gotta look at this thing, yeah. And so, it's really easy to work for a candidate that works so hard. Now, there's two skill sets. There's a candidate, and then there's the congressman. But if he works as hard at being a congressman, which I know he will, he's going to make an outstanding congressman. And to wrap this up, we have 85 days left. We've been in this thing for well over 500 days right now. Some days it seems like 5,000, sometimes it seems like 5. But 85 days left. If you like what this gentleman says, I got a few things for you to help out on. We need canvassers, knocking on doors, talking to your neighbors. We need phoners. We have mailings, we have social media, we have events, and all of that. It does take a village. It takes all of you to take back our government. You turn on the news and you see just awful things happening. It's therapeutic to be involved in this campaign. It's fun, and you can strike a blow for our Constitution. And I'm going to let you hear from absolutely positively the best candidate I've ever worked for. And our next congressman from the 49th, Mr. Mike Levin.
To the Bullets for hosting. Serving mojitos back there.
My daughter. My daughter.
I just want to thank Bob for his leadership, for being there every step of the way, and so many of you who have been involved in this campaign. We had a crazy primary. I think everybody knows that. It was expensive. It was challenging, but we made it through. And we wound up now with a general election opponent in Diane Harkey, who I think could not be a clearer contrast to the values that we stand for as Democrats, and I would say the values that I understand to be American values. Just a very basic understanding that truth matters, evidence and science matters. I have by background about 13 or 14 years in environmental law and environmental policy. And as I've gotten to know so many people here in Oceanside and across the district, having clean air and clean water and a cleaner beach and getting the nuclear waste off our coast, that's not partisan, right? No. People of all political persuasions, they don't want dirty air or dirty water or a dirty beach, right? Right. So why is this so hard? Why then do we have the Republicans, including Diane Harkey, refusing to vote against offshore drilling, standing with the Koch brothers and standing with the oil companies rather than with sustainability and the clean energy jobs of the future? I have, for the last 18 months, had an incredible journey to be where we are today, which is 85 days away from what I think is going to be an historic victory in the 49th district. And it's I can tell you that our race is critical. When you take a look at the map all across the country and you think about how Democrats can retake the House of Representatives. And I know a lot of independents and even some Republicans that think it's time for a check on this administration. When you look at that map and you realize the 49th district is an absolutely critical element, a must-win, not a nice-to-have, but a must-have, then you realize the great responsibility that comes with that. But the part that for me is so exciting is we all get to be part of something greater than our own self-interest. We get to be part of a little piece of American history, changing the face of the House of Representatives, getting Democrats back into control of the majority in the House. That is a very big deal, and you all have an opportunity to be a big part of this campaign over the next 85 days. And as Bob said, absolutely, you can applaud that. There's simply too much at stake. Now, this morning I was on the phone with our amazing team. Every morning, Monday morning, we have a phone call, and I said, look, had we lost the primary, we could all go about our business and we could help whoever had won, and we could, do the best we could, but we could, know that we tried our best. Now, we've got to win. We've got to win because there's too much at stake. The future of our healthcare system is at stake. We literally have the Republican plan on healthcare is to take millions and millions of people's healthcare and either make it so expensive where they can't afford it or make it unavailable altogether. If Diane Harkey had her way, Covered California would have never been implemented in the state of California. Those with pre-existing conditions would have never received care. Women's care would not have been available the way that it was under Covered California.
Boo.
Reproductive care would not have been available. Care for mental health would not have been available. That's what Diane Harkey's vision for health care would have been.
Shame on her.
Absolutely. Had it been for the Republicans, unfortunately, they got what they wanted with the tax policy. But here in California, we know that even the upper middle class are not benefiting from this. The middle class are certainly not benefiting from this. When you think about the $1.5 trillion tax scam that was enacted by the Republicans, to benefit the very, very top of the economic spectrum at the expense of everyone else, we know that that does not represent the American values that we all stand for. We need a representative democracy that actually fights for people across the economic spectrum, not just those at the very top. And what we're doing now, what Trump wants to do now, is give another $100 billion unilaterally, without congressional approval. Think about that. Without congressional approval, to the top 1% at the expense of all of us. And I did a little math the other day. I figured that best case scenario, over the next 10 years, I will maybe get about a $5,000 to a $10,000 tax break. Maybe. However, what the cost will be in the national debt, my share of the national debt will be around $80,000. So it doesn't work out so well. And I would imagine the same is true for virtually everyone here. Unless you're a billionaire, in which case, hey, we really could use your help financially in this election. But for most people, when you look at the state and local tax deduction being capped at $10,000, or when you look at the mortgage interest deduction being capped, I mean, my wife and I could not have afforded the house that we live in. We're very fortunate to live in a great community, but we could not have afforded our house had that state and local tax deduction been capped, and had that mortgage interest deduction been capped, we could not have afforded the home that we bought. And I know that we're making it more difficult, not less, for those people who are trying to buy their first home or try to go up in home. And that ultimately will hurt far more people here in California, where we have a high cost of housing and a high cost of living. Just the same, when you consider the fact that we, in our district, everybody might want to know where our district is. That might be helpful, right? It goes all the way up to Dana Point. So you have Dana Point in South Orange County. You have San Juan Capistrano. That's where I'm from. That's where my wife and I are raising our two kids. We have a 6-year-old son named Jonathan and a 4-year-old daughter named Elizabeth. I have to give a shout out to my daughter's preschool teacher, who's actually here somewhere. Where did she go? Thank you, Miss Lily, for being here. Thank you. I love teachers. I was so honored when the California Teachers Association endorsed our campaign. To double down in the general. Absolutely, we need every door knock, we need every phone call made. So we have all of South Orange County, San Clemente, Dana Point, San Juan Capistrano. Then we have Camp Pendleton. I was so incredibly honored the other day to take a tour of the base and to see the finest Marine Expeditionary Force in the world.
That's right.
Being trained right down the street. It is a truly remarkable sight. And one of the things that I want to do is hire a full-time, if I'm so honored to serve in Congress, our district office here in North County will have a full-time military liaison with local military experience, whose sole responsibility is to communicate and connect with community leaders, military leaders, to make sure that we're all part of a collective whole, that we're all an integrated group working together to solve our local community concerns with the help of the military. When we think about homelessness issues, when we think about housing issues, when we think about child care issues, when we think about health care issues, we need the help of our military. We're all in this together. It's a huge part of our community. I'm committed to fight for our active duty men and women and fight for our veterans to make sure they have the tools and the training necessary to serve us well, and when they get back from their service, that we're taking as good a care of them as they've taken care of us. That is a huge So then south of Pendleton, obviously we're here in Oceanside, the largest city in the district. I can tell you that we have a new office that we've opened right in the heart of downtown Oceanside, right off Tremont and where the transfer center is. This is the No Excuses Field campaign. If you are anywhere near a train, anywhere near the Sprinter, the Coaster, the Amtrak, you can come right to our office, and it's right off the exit. And it's right by the beach. Pretty good way to have to spend the day. Come to our office, make some calls, go to the beach. So we opened that office. Also, obviously, we've got Vista, we've got Carlsbad, we've got Encinitas, Solana Beach, Del Mar, and then all the way down to a little bit of La Jolla and UC San Diego. You go inland, and we've got Rancho Santa Fe. We opened another office in Solana Beach, a beautiful office right off the 5 freeway at Lomas, Santa Fe. So all of your friends who are south of here, maybe in Solana Beach or Del Mar, Rancho Santa Fe, or they want to go from Carlsbad, they can go to either. Carlsbad's kind of in the middle. This is the No Excuses program. This is the No Excuses Field campaign, and we'd love to have them down there. And if they're up in South Orange County, we have an office in San Clemente. Also another beautiful place to spend the weekend, by the way. My point in bringing that up, 52 miles from north to south, coastal, a beautiful coast, and the Pacific Ocean. So we care about our coast, we care about clean air. We need someone who's actually going to roll up their sleeves and do something about that nuclear waste at San Onofre. I guarantee you, Diane Harkey will not, and I will. I have taken a number of tours, both of the site and of the San Onofre parks, to see the situation. It is a very dangerous situation. We all have to be cognizant of it, and we all have to work together to solve what could be a real catastrophe if we're not careful. You've got earthquakes, you've got the potential for sea level rise. It's not a good situation, and it's going to be an important part of my service. Another, absolutely. It's kind of a scary thing to applaud, but it's actually a really important thing that we all have to work together to do is get that waste off the coast. Because the sea level is rising. All you got to do is just go out to the Pacific and take a look at where things were 50 years ago, 100 years ago, and where they are today. And I am not a scientist. You don't have to be a scientist to see the obvious impact of climate change on our community. So there's no question in my mind that we've got to solve that problem as best we can. We also have to make sure that we continue to have great public schools. And I know we brought up the importance of our teachers, but it's so important to me at a time. We just talked about the environment. We have an environmental protection agency that doesn't care about environmental protection. We also have a Department of Education that doesn't care about public education. That needs to stop. We need members of Congress who are going to stand strong with our teachers and our students and make sure that we put our public schools first, always first. And not just our public schools, but our public employees, those who are working hard every single day, getting the job done. We have to make sure that we're standing up not only for those at the top of the economic spectrum, but the working people of this district again. We have to make sure that we've got living wages, that if somebody in this district is working 40 hours a week, that they can actually afford a place to live. I had a chance not long ago to go and visit Jewish Family Service, and if you don't know what that is, it's not just for the Jewish community, it's for everybody. In fact, 90% of the people who are using services provided by JFS are not Jewish. But one of the things they do, it's big for homelessness, it's big for housing. Every night they have a big parking lot, and they open the parking lot up. The employees go home and they open it up, and people basically stay overnight there, and it is families. It is working people, some single parents, but a lot of families, moms and dads, and they've got kids, and they can't afford a place to live in our community. They can't afford the rent for a one-bedroom or a studio. Even though they are working full-time in this community, they can't afford to make ends meet. And then you ask, why is that? What happened where they wound up here in a parking lot as opposed to being able to afford a place permanently? The number one thing that you hear, healthcare costs. Healthcare costs. So maybe a son broke their arm, they put it, they weren't covered, or the deductible was $3,000, they put it on a credit card, and all of a sudden the high interest credit card got out of control, so maybe they took out a payday loan, and then they lost whatever ability they had to borrow additional money, so they wound up not being able to afford their rent. These are typical stories that you hear in this community. It is unconscionable to me that we have fewer consumer protections than we have had in a long, long time with this administration. They have wanted to gut the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. I don't know if you saw this, but Darrell Issa actually wanted to run the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. And you think about that for a second. We're talking about probably the most anti-consumer person you can imagine. So I want to wrap things up. I want to leave all the time in the world for questions and to get to know each of you that I don't know already and hopefully engage you in this campaign. What I can tell you is if you come to our office, you're going to see like-minded people, just like the people that protested in front of Darrell Issa's office every week for 67 weeks. How many of you did that? Absolutely right. So I have to tell you that nothing made me prouder than going out there and seeing the diversity, economic diversity, the racial diversity. It was an incredible group of people. And the only thing that brought us together, in my opinion, people said, well, they're paid protesters. The heck we were paid protesters. make sure that people have quality and affordable health care and good public schools. We want to make sure we stand up for the truth and evidence and science again, and that we have a clear and coherent foreign policy and don't go into war unnecessarily. We all believe all that to be true. So we're frustrated when we see this administration going off the rails and when we see Darrell Issa doing nothing. But beyond that frustration, behind it is a fundamental decency that I think that we share. That we share not only as Democrats, but most of the people in this district share. And so for the next 85 days, I'm on a mission to speak to as many of them as I can. In house parties like this, knocking on their doors, calling them, and I make a lot of phone calls. Those of you that have gotten those calls know, and if you haven't gotten one from me yet, you probably will, because I love doing it. And I sense that the tide is turning. There is a fundamental decency that is going to ultimately be the deciding factor. Because the American people are better than what we are witnessing right now. They're better than what we're witnessing right now. My immigrant grandparents, on one side, my family is from Austria and we're Jews. On the other side, from Mexico. My grandparents on my mom's side were Mexican immigrants. My grandparents taught me that America is a place where you respect and appreciate one another. You don't just tolerate them, you appreciate the differences. You appreciate regardless of gender or gender identity or sexual orientation or race or religion or country of origin. We are strong as Americans because we appreciate each other. Why is this so hard to understand? Obviously, the person in the Oval Office doesn't understand. They're basing their entire political career on hate and division. We need to stand up and rise against it. And I'll close by saying this. A couple weeks ago, we've gotten a ton of endorsements in this race, but none was more inspiring and humbling than President Barack Obama. My wife and I got a chance to speak with the president, and he endorsed our campaign, and that one gave me goosebumps. So this is after 2 years of this stuff. And what President Obama had to say to us was pretty simple. And it's up to us to finish how this history is going to be written. But we're at a crossroads right now in our history. On the one hand is we can validate this tribalism that we're seeing, this selfishness that we're seeing. On the other hand, we can reject it, and we can again begin to build around that shared ideal that we need to build community, and we need to get beyond our petty differences and realize that we're far stronger when we unite as Americans. We're shared principles and a common goal, and that's equal opportunity, that's social justice, that's economic fairness, that's a cleaner environment. I know we can do it. Do you know we can do it? Which everybody knows. We're all going to chant together. Can we chant Flip the 49? Does that work? All right, who wants to start? Flip the 49! Flip the 49! Flip the 49! Flip the 49! We're going to do it. We're here. 49! I'm so grateful for you. Yes, sir. I like your shirt.
What is the makeup of the district?
Democrats versus Republicans.
Yeah.
So great question. His question, what's the makeup of the district? I can tell you that it's about 37% Republican, about 33% Democratic, and about 30% inclined to state. Which doesn't sound so good until you figure in a few things. Number one, Hillary Clinton won the district by 25,000 votes. 25,000 votes, 7.4%. Number two, the 2016 election was the closest congressional election in the country, in the 49th. The difference was only 1,621. Remember that chant? 1621, Darrell Issa, you are undone? He obviously agreed. Number three, and most relevant for right now, is on June 5th, during the primary, when you add up the votes for the 4 Democratic candidates who are on the ballot, myself and the other 3, it equals 51.5% of the vote. So all we got to do is do that again. That's easier said than done. I mean, we got to work our heart out and leave no stone unturned to get there. However, 51.5% of those who voted on June 5th voted for a Democrat. Because I think they're tired of what they're seeing in this country. They're ready for a change. They're ready to turn the page on the pettiness and the division and the hatred. And they're sick of Congress creating problems. They want Congress to solve problems. And that's why I think we're going to take it back. That's a tough question. So all the racial stuff. Well, I'm hugely disappointed in racism, and I thought Trump once again missed an opportunity to try to reach out to people the other day when he said racism in all its forms. He would not call out white supremacy for what it is. It's the 1-year anniversary of Charlottesville, and let's be clear, there are no two sides. No. There's only right and wrong, and unfortunately, he's now really proven himself to be in the wrong on Charlottesville, and unfortunately, at some point, we need to turn the page back towards justice. And unfortunately, we have just lost our way. And what I have seen is that President Obama, he was elected. It was only 10 years ago that Barack Obama was elected President of the United States. When that happened, I believe that anything was possible in this country, and that the arc towards justice was definitely bending quicker than many people would have expected. But there's been a backlash. And unfortunately, this happens. Throughout the course of American history, that backlash happens from time to time. But now we need to stand up and say we are better than what we're seeing today out of Washington, D.C., out of this administration, out of the Congress that empowered them. And we have to stand up for social justice in all its forms. Thank you very much. Yes, sir. Hey, how are you?
Good.
Fantastic.
I usually listen.
I absolutely agree. So, to your first part of your question about dreamers, this breaks my heart because when you take a look across the board at the issues where there are huge bipartisan numbers to do something, one of those is to provide a path to citizenship for dreamers. 80%, 85% of Americans of all political persuasions want to see that. And for me, this is a no-brainer. I think of my own grandparents, again, who came from Mexico. My grandpa was only 11 years old. My grandma was 3 years old when they came ultimately to California, through Texas, through Arizona, ultimately made their way to California. They didn't speak English. They didn't have any formal education. All they knew was that if they worked hard in the United States of America, they would have a better life. And ultimately, that's what happened. They had 5 girls, including my mom. All the 5 girls wound up going to college, graduating from college. My grandparents didn't even graduate high school. And my mom today, she calls my grandma and grandpa the dreamers of their day. And the challenge that I worry about is we're taking that American dream, which was very real for my grandparents, and we're now turning it into an American nightmare, where we are separating the complete lack of humanity. Whoever would ever separate a parent from their child as a deterrent, where's the humanity? Where's the heart? And having a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old myself, there's no way I could ever even fathom that anyone would ever wish that on anyone. And so now we're stuck in a situation where there are still hundreds of children who are separated from their parents, even to this day. And for me, it's one of the biggest disgraceful parts of a disgraceful administration. And beyond it, what do we do now? Well, if the Democrats retake the majority in the House, you better believe that we're going to fight like crazy to pass the DREAM Act. And we're going to provide a path to citizenship for dreamers. Diane Hartley does not even want a path to citizenship for dreamers. I think we need to go further than that, and I think that if people are here that are contributing socially, economically, culturally to our society, and we know growing up here in Southern California that unless you're a Native American, your parents, grandparents, somebody was an immigrant, and they came here and they worked hard and they contributed. culturally, socially, economically, and we're all the better for it. We get it because we grew up here in Southern California. We understand how this whole society was created, and we know that immigration strengthens us. And I think we've heard enough of those who wish to divide and create unnecessary boundaries. We don't need that wall at the southern border. Diane Harkey wants that wall, by the way.
Yeah.
Diane Harkey wants that wall. Another area in which we disagree. So we need to stand up. We need to have common sense immigration reform. We need to get to a path to citizenship for those who are contributing. And I know that we can do it if we retake the House. Thank you very much for the question. Yes.
One of the many things I'm doing is the fact that I feel that cars are stacked voter suppression, even things like up until talking about
Yeah.
women's electoral college.
Yeah.
They're not going. Can you just speak to that? Because that's part of the whole system.
So this is a big problem in our country. Voting rights, gerrymandering, voter suppression, and the Electoral College, frankly. Now, here's the good news. Here in the 49th, if we get 50% plus one vote, we win. We actually have a Secretary of State in Alex Padilla. We have 2 registrars in Orange County and San Diego County that actually have this crazy idea that if more people vote, it's a good thing. So I've never been prouder to be a Californian for many reasons, and that's one of them. And another thing is we are a national model in that we have a Citizens Redistricting Commission that every 10 years draws the district lines. We do not allow that to be a partisan process to the extent to which it is in most other states in the union. So it's good to be a Californian. That's why races like ours are so doggone competitive. Up and down the state of California, you have 4 districts in Orange County, including ours, because a quarter of our district is in Orange County, where we could win all 4 of them. Wouldn't that be something? And that's because we do things the right way in California, and we're empowering people to vote. Now, I worry about hacking. I worry about what I read and see with interference from foreign adversaries into our election. I think most Americans are worried about this as well. I think really the only one who's not worried about it is in the Oval Office. We all, with just 2 ears, it's like evidence is a beautiful thing. We know what happened in 2016. We know the impact that the Russians had on the election. We are doing nothing to deter it. This administration is doing nothing to deter it. And it will happen again if we're not careful. It already has been with some of the Senate races. I can tell you on our race, we have a full-time cybersecurity professional sent from Washington who is here. Where is she?
Back corner.
He's in the back. Thank you for what you're doing. Even better. Absolutely serious. For the next 3 months, he's living here with the Bullets, I think.
Yes, yes.
Yes, thank you for hosting. So Shaheen came into our my home Wi-Fi and broke into it in about 4 minutes, something like that. So I said, we got real trouble here. So thank you, Shaheen, for what you're doing. Mike, I gotta go with the host.
Are you going to debate Diane Harkey?
Yeah.
Ooh, who wants to see a debate? All right, so let me tell you about that. We have already issued several offers to debate Diane Harkey. NBC 7, you know, politically speaking,
Yes.
we'd like to go on politically speaking and debate Diane Harkey.
Yes.
ABC 10,
Yes.
KPBS,
Yes.
and Voice of San Diego. We have told them all, you know, they've asked us, do you want to do a debate? Do you want to do a debate? We say, yes, 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 we do. Diane Harkey says, no, 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 no. So, I told our team this morning, we're going to give them about a week. We're going to give them to the end of this week. And if they don't accept any of those requests to debate on television with legitimate news organizations, maybe the Coast News, where's the Coast News? They're here somewhere. Maybe they want to do the 5th one. We'll challenge them to another one. But all we care is that it's balanced, objective, get the League of Women Voters involved, go down the middle. If we get a media personality to moderate it, that usually goes well. And if it's televised or live streamed, even better. Harkey has not responded to any of our requests, and we're going to make sure everybody knows about this. In fact, maybe the Coast News is going to tell everyone about this. We would love to debate her anytime, anywhere, so long as it's fair and equal and objective. So stay tuned.
Mike, can I ask one?
Yes, of course.
Can you talk about the environmental laws? Because what Dale Isis doing, that book you did like 16 months ago.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty different.
So I started the campaign 16 months ago by sending Daryl Issa a copy of the book Climate Change for Beginners. And this is one where Mike Bullock and I, we're simpatico on this because it's so obvious what's happening with our changing climate, and this is a dramatic problem, okay? We don't get another planet. At least we haven't figured out how to do that yet. We've got to fix this one, which means we've got to take major steps to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, major steps to reduce pollution from transportation, from industry, from power plants, major steps. And now we're actually going in the right direction. We weren't going as far enough as we could have or should have under President Obama, but at least we were going in the right direction, trying to reduce emissions. And now we are undermining our Clean Air Act, undermining our Clean Water Act, and making it harder. They want to make it so that California cannot set its own pollution reduction standards. They want to make it so, I don't know about you, but when I grew up, I used to, remember the smog alerts that would happen? And there were more than one days growing up in the 80s where I could not go outside to recess because of the hazardous air quality. Everybody remember this? If Trump had his way, that's where we would be going back to. And I think everybody here, we like our clean air. We like our clean beach and clean water. We know how hard we've worked to reduce emissions to get to where we're at. And now, when you travel, you see there's mountains up there. There didn't used to be mountains up there 2 years ago. And there's Catalina Island. There's an island out there. You couldn't see it when I was growing up. And so we're not going back. Period. End of story. And if Trump wants to come to California and fight over it, we're ready for the fight. Are you ready for that fight? Who was next? Yes, sir, in the back.
Yeah, I was in Japan when the nuclear meltdown happened.
Yes.
And
Oh,
it was,
man.
it was terrible. Not only money, but the lives lost, and then they weren't able to return. Still, certain areas are still not able to return. So I think anyone knows that it's a disaster. So, but I was going to ask you. I was like up all night last night or 2 nights ago reading this new immigration proposal that says that if you're a spouse and you're applying for a new green card, or you want to renew your green card, if your children or anybody in your household has ever used Medi-Cal or WIC, which me and my family use, my wife's an immigrant, and we struggled to get good health care after I got out of the military. That will be deemed as a public charge now, and you'll have to, when you renew, they could technically make you pay the government back. This is all in the proposal. I was shocked. I read the Washington Post article, and I was like, no, that's some scary stuff. And I read it. Sure, it's in there. And then also Stephen Miller's, his uncle just wrote a political article.
I think it said something like Stephen Miller's full of garbage, and I should know I'm his uncle.
Yeah. And it's intense because he brings up, the persecution of Stephen Miller's family, fleeing.
So, a couple things. Number one, for me, it's absolutely unconscionable that anyone such as yourself who would serve our country, upon your return, that you would not have quality and accessible and affordable health care. Period. And that's number one. So this immigration policy that Trump and his administration would have put in place is nothing short of hateful. It's absolutely, in my opinion, un-American. Everything from separating children from parents, but just generally not treating people with dignity. And if someone cannot have basic health services, if someone is treated as though they're not even a human being, that is no longer the America that I know, that I was raised in, that we were all raised in. At that point, we become something far worse and far different. And I figure we get 2 elections to figure this out and to get it right. We've got the 2018 election. We must, not we hope to, we must take back the House of Representatives.
Right.
And if we have to. And then we have to take back the White House in 2020.
And the Senate.
The Senate too, absolutely. That's a longer shot in 18, but we've got to do it at least in 20. Absolutely. Both of you had your hands up. Who would like to go first? Go right ahead.
Have you heard any talk about who might be running in 2020?
Who might be running in 2020? Well, if I were looking at it, I would go to the Iowa State Fair, and I'd see who's hanging out, because I don't think they're just there for the corn dogs. So I don't know who's been. I've been busy with our thing. Obviously, I hear about people like Senator Harris and others, and I like Senator Harris a whole bunch, by the way. I honestly don't know. I honestly have no idea. I hope we have a big field, and I hope that we really talk about who we are as a country. Because if we have the right person who can speak to the vast number of us who know that we're better than what we're watching on television, who know, I mean, look, I'll put it to you like this, and Miss Lily knows this because she knows my daughter. We tell our daughter, don't bully other people. We tell them, don't discriminate, treat everyone the same, everyone fairly. And we tell them, be prepared, always do your little homework and read your books and all that. So don't bully, don't discriminate, and be prepared. And yet we've elected someone as our president who bullies, discriminates, and is never prepared. And so I know that the parents of America aren't going to allow this to stand any longer for our own children and for future generations. So I think we can, rest assured that a whole lot of us are ready for this to end. Say again? Oh, well, he said, will Trump send back his in-laws? I think that that's another example where the rules don't apply to Trump and to his family, and that's why, ultimately, I look at the emoluments violations, I look at the conflicts of interest galore. This guy doesn't think the rules apply. That's what they do. One more question from someone who hasn't answered a question. Sorry, you already asked one. Well, I'm going to stick around, though. Go right ahead.
So we just got back into town. We were gone for 4 years, right? So I'm
Wow.
really excited that we weren't
Wow.
here for ISA, just this moment. But I think everyone here would agree that we really need someone like you to represent us moving forward. But given the statistics you cited about the makeup of the district, I'm curious, messaging-wise, what is it that you're doing to bring in some other voters, bring in some people in the middle, the disenfranchised Republicans, people who have yet to make up their minds?
So, great question, because it's on my mind every day, every morning are we contacting those people. And the way I believe the path to victory is fairly simple. So you look at June 5th and you saw that we got 51.5% of the vote, the Democrats did. We obviously didn't have 51.5% of the district that's Democrats, right? So in order to do that, we got about 62% of the no party preference, the independents. And the reality is what we have seen and what you all know is that our electorate here in the district and throughout the country is very polarized. Very, Republicans, some of them you're just not going to get. If there's R by their name, they're going to vote Republican. And the same with Democrats. We feel very good that the Democrats are going to consolidate around our campaign by and large. So it's really among the no party preference, the decline of state, the independent voters. And I can tell you that if you look at Donald Trump's popularity with those folks, and, for example, you look at Barack Obama's popularity, there's no question in my mind that people miss President Obama more than they want more leaders, or lack of leadership. So we have to convey our values to those voters, and we do that in part on the phone, at the doors, in the mailbox, on the television set, on Facebook and other social media platforms, but we convey a message that most of us are tired of Washington creating more problems than it solves. And most people in this district want someone who's going to go to Washington but fight for the residents of Oceanside, for the residents of the 49th district, not use the office to grandstand the way Darrell Issa has, not use the office for their own self-gain, but for the greater benefit of everybody in the community. So I know we can do this. I know we can do this. And ultimately, it's your office. That's what the House of Representatives was set up to be, was the people's house. So the door will be open. You go to Daryl Ice's office right now, the door is locked. I don't know if anyone's there or not. I can tell you, he has 2 offices, the one up in Orange County. Literally, the mail slot is shut, like shut, where you can't even drop off a letter. It's that bad. So wouldn't it be nice if we opened the door and if we let people in again and we actually represented the interests of the community again? That's what I intend to do. That's how I think we win. All right, I want to thank everybody. I really appreciate being here with you all, and I would love to have you volunteer. And we had one more in the back.
I'm wondering if I can hear your position on red flag laws.
On red flag laws.
To prevent like domestic abusers from owning weapons, etc.
I think that we absolutely must stop anyone who has been convicted of domestic violence from being able to carry a weapon without a justification that they have considerably overcome that problem. But I support the position of Moms Demand Action, the Brady campaign, and others with regard to those laws. So I'm a strong supporter of gun violence prevention, and doing something about those who have committed domestic violence is absolutely huge because they're responsible for an overwhelming number of all new offenses. So absolutely right. Thank you. So let's see. I want to do one last thing. I wanted to thank the Bullets one more time, so everybody give a big round of applause. I also wanted to give a shout out. Where did Michelle go? Okay, so I want to make sure everybody gets to know Michelle Gomez, who's running for supervisor.
Yeah,
The
Michelle!
Democrat running for supervisor here in our district. And who else is here? Other candidates? No.
My colleague
Yes.
on the process.
Oh, Veronica. Veronica on the Carlsbad School Board. Thank you for being here, Veronica. Excellent. Are there any other candidates here? No. Anybody want to run for office? No. Listen, I just want to thank you again. I'm going to stick around. Enjoy yourselves. Enjoy the food and the mojitos. Thank you to the Bullets. And let's go win. Are you ready to flip the house? Thank you, everybody.
Jim might be in that little section.
Sarah, we want her. If she does get elected, she's still on the board. I've got to learn.
No, I don't want to ask my damn Democrat is for me.
How are you? Great to see you. How is everything? How's everything going?
It's great.
We had just a few punches at 3 wheels.
It was a lot of fun.
How was the history?
We made a little bit of history. I believe it was to show him that. Yeah, you can bug him all the time. I need your name and address. I got him with the dude, man. Hopefully anyone's
I was on call for the story. He's going to go to a lot of different community events.
It's nice to come down. I guess he's just up there.
Well, not even that. She is
I traffic to LA. I just not done that trip. So I mean, like I go for occasionally, like Disneyland and shit. Most of my life is San Diego. It's nice up there. Saturdays. Have a good night, Mike. My first winter I feel the place, but it's just one regular, you know, drive. You have to win. You're like me, you know, it's like, you know, drafted. Oh yeah, I got it.
You got my son?
I know I would be like, oh my God, just go take that again.
All right.
I know I would die. Love it while I had it. I would die.
Everybody can say hi.
He said,
How are you? I'm sorry. He's waiting.
he's the flower, you're all the honeybees.
We lived there. I was there, 25 years ago. We were born and raised in Cincinnati. We're just talking pollution. The cleanup that happened around Detroit. There was a time you took a picture of the loves myself and a lot of places you can experience.
Well, in Cleveland,
Lake Erie was dead. Now it's back to life. And they
That's been moved about what he was talking about I don't think I think volunteers
Mike, call me Mike. How you doing, Greg?
That's what I think, but I want to make sure. Yeah. We want definitely want to get that. Right. Yeah. Yeah, I gotta make sure I get that.
You have to stand there.
Yeah. There's a lot. It's like a wedding. It's like a wedding reception. It's like congratulations.
I can.
First, just like say that at the reception line too. Yeah, you might make it like that.
That's how the listeners should sign in.
Right.
Because they signed in.
Yeah. I think they made everything sign in. I would, that's what I thought, yeah. Nice push. Yes.
Around. It was the biggest
It was the biggest, bigger than any meet and greet ever.
Because we have to. It's a hugely important base. Asking for the jobs that we've got in the district, the civilian jobs that we've got in the district, people live in the district and know huge. Think about those that are retirees and those that are in the reserves. And this is a huge part of the community. And we have to support we're actually doing, we have a committee of veterans. If you're ever interested in participating, let me know if you do something. Veterans,
Trump says the other ones are doing it.
How are you, Vincent? Nice to meet you. You got it. Thanks for being here. Of course. We had a huge event. It was outrageously cool. They did the best job of like anybody. I told the whole team, Chad Griffin is the president of HRC, that no one did a better endorsement event in terms of being organized. And they had it on social media that same day, and they're just great.
Well, there's a lot of religious planning in the House still programs of an to allow religious organizations to unite against gays and adoptions.
Yes.
I'm just so tired of it.
Well, my opponent, she wanted to make it anyway the ridiculous what's it called? I'm blanking out. Conversion therapy. She wanted to make conversion therapy okay, and she refused to vote against it. That's disgusting. That's child abuse, in my opinion. So beyond that, she'd be against the Equality Act. She'd be against marriage equality, against rights in the workplace, adoption rights. She's against the whole thing. She's just, what can I tell you? Kind of pathetic all the way around.
But I did have a question for you, because I know that your background is in energy.
Yes, sir.
So I was curious about, now that Proposition 6 is on the ballot, and Republicans are trying to get SB1, is that just something that's going to affect like roads and bridges, or do you see that as having like environmental impacts?
That's a good question.
Growth, or like,
I look at it, yes. I mean, it is going to impact economic growth. It's also going to impact safety. If we don't, if we repeal the infrastructure package that we had to pass it in the state, when you think about it, the federal government should have and could have done an infrastructure bill. We squandered the money away on a big tax cut. The federal government would have done its job and passed the infrastructure bill. We wouldn't need SB1. The state wouldn't need to make up for what the federal government is failing to do. And therefore, we're stuck. So now we're stuck. And the two options are bad and worse. Bad is the taxpayers footing the bill in California because the federal government blew it. The worse is roads that are in disrepair and bridges that are unsafe.
So if we do take back the house,
Go ahead, go ahead.
I was just curious, when we do take back the house, do you see that as something the Democrats would push for, something along the lines of this, or would it just be nationwide?
Yes, we would have, there is a real infrastructure bill that has already been proposed. It would cost $1.3 trillion, and we ought to pass it. And it would be a huge economic boon. It would be a huge win-win-win for everybody, particularly here in California, where we have a very dated infrastructure. We need to help. Thank you so much. Thank you for my card. Never hesitate to be in touch.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you. So nice to meet you. So nice to see you.
We love it.